But with parents, Allah says, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Show them the most excellent aspect of you.
Every home deserves a beautiful copy of the Qur'an, a book that fills your heart with peace, your soul with light, and your life with guidance. A Qur'an you turn to in quiet moments of reflection. A Qur'an that strengthens your connection with Allah. This Ramadan, as you support Cambridge Central Mosque, we want to honor your generosity by gifting you a beautifully crafted Cambridge Qur'an, an elegant keepsake embossed with our mosque's logo. To find out more, visit cambridgecentralmosque.org/Qur'an.
The second relationship we're going to speak about that is evident in the Quran, and Allah emphasizes this relationship. Allah emphasizes this relationship so much that in the Quran, Allah does not join His worship with anything, right? He doesn't add a wa when it comes to His worship except this second relationship. This relationship is the relationship between parents and children, right? The relationship with our parents. Allah in the Quran says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah says, and your Lord has ordained that you do not worship anyone but Him. And then He says, what? He joined His worship, which shows that really this is the maqam, this is the status that Allah gives to parents. And then He says, what? And bilwalidaini ihsana. He says, show excellence to your parents. Notice here, and there's another verse in the Quran where Allah speaks about how husband and wife should treat each other. Allah says, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Treat them with goodness, kindness. But with parents, Allah says, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Show them the most excellent aspect of you. So excellent, you won't find any verse in the Quran where Allah says, do not be rude to them. In fact, rather than saying do not be rude to them, Allah says, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفْ. Don't even show the slightest hint of discomfort in their presence. Like, right? Don't even say that. You're not allowed to do that with your parents. وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفْ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. Right? وَصَاحِبُهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Be with them in the best way, in a good way, right? As long as they're in the dunya. So this relationship is a very beautiful, sacred relationship that Allah mandates excellence between parents and the son. And if we look at one of such in the Quran, the first one that comes to mind is that of Yusuf and Ya'qub, right? Yusuf, being one of the sons of Ya'qub, was someone that was so beloved to Ya'qub. Right? Although all of his children were beloved to him, because he had seen how close Allah would draw Yusuf to himself, he became much more beloved to him. Because friends of Allah, their love, their heart is primarily for Allah. And anyone who wants to earn their love will have to earn their relationship with Allah. And because he saw where Allah was going to place Yusuf, Yusuf became very beloved to him. And as such, he was someone that Yusuf would confide in his father regarding his worst fears. When Yusuf had a nightmare, he had a dream. No, it wasn't a nightmare. It was a dream where he couldn't understand what this dream meant. He saw celestial bodies prostrating to him. He went to his dad. What does that tell us? We should have a relationship with our parents that we can seek them out for advice. That when we feel, I'm not sure where to go here, we go to our parents for advice. He went to Ya'qub and he advised, he said, Dad, inni ra'aytu ahada ashara kawkaba. I see these 11 stars. Wa-shamsa wal-qamara. I see the star and the moon. Ra'aytuhum li sajidin. I saw them prostrating to me. The father, understanding the precarious nature of this dream, he said to him, don't tell your brothers of this dream, because this is something special. This is a gift. Why? Because Shaitan will come in between you and your brothers, right? And they might plot against you. Indeed, Shaitan is an avowed enemy to mankind. So Yusuf and his father were very close, so much so that when Yusuf was then taken away and was told, and the father was told that Yusuf had died, right, and been killed by a wolf, his father was so heartbroken, even though he relied on the promise of Allah, that he knew that his son, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, would still come back to him, right? Yet the distance from his son was such that it led him to cry a lot, right? What happened when they brought his cloth to him? He said, "Bal sawwalat lakumu anfusukumu amra." You guys have just created your own story. You've invented a matter for yourself. فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. For me, I know this is from Allah. I know Allah has allowed this to happen, and I'm going to behave in a way that's most befitting of a servant of Allah. So what does he do? He was patient. Yusuf was away from his father. Now look at the relationship between Yusuf and his father. When Yusuf was away and he was tempted by the lady that adopted him, some of the Mufassirun said that he would have inclined towards the lady, except that he saw Burhana Rabbihi, a proof, a sign from his Lord. Now, some of the scholars said that at that point, Allah revealed to him the picture of his father, that he saw his father, and that made him go, no, I cannot. I am the son of Yaqub. I cannot put myself in this situation. That's what some of the Mufassirun say. But you look at Yusuf, he was someone who regularly, missed his father, but his father as well missed him so much. It led to him crying a lot, that led to his eyes leaving. You can almost imagine the love between them, that the father could not bear to see a world that Yusuf was absent in. And even those eyes didn't want to see a world where his beloved was not in it. And as such, they decided to not see anything at all. Until what brought back his sight? Just the cloth of his son. The reality that, okay, my son has worn this cloth, and this is the cloth of my son. Of course, it's a mu'jiza, it's a miracle, right? But the cloth of his son brought back his sight. This shows how intimate and how close a relationship should be between parents. Many people like to talk about the relationship between mother and child, which of course, that's by naturally is probably one of the closest you will ever find, right? But also here in the Qur'an, Allah emphasizes that between a father and his son, because it's one of those relationships that people don't associate with a lot of love, yearning, missing, crying. But Allah, in giving us ahsan al-qasas, the most beautiful of stories, tells us about a prophet of God crying so much that he lost his sight because he misses his son, because his son is absent from him. Another story to look at, which is also from another father to another son, is the story of Ibrahim and Ismail. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he prayed to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala for years for a child, right? He prayed so long for a child, and eventually Allah grants him a child. Of course, naturally, anything that you pray for a long time, you would fall in love with that thing, especially when you didn't pray for that thing for worldly reasons, especially when the reason why you prayed for that thing is so that Allah's deen can be continued, that Allah's religion can continue in this world, someone that would inherit the wisdom and knowledge that God gave you and be able to give it to others. So Ibrahim, of course, when his son was born, he was very happy. And then Allah brings the test, because the nature of the heart of the believer is one that Allah will not share your heart with anyone but him. So when Allah revealed to his friend Ibrahim, he is nicknamed Khalilullah, the friend of Allah, when Allah revealed to him that he was going to sacrifice his son, right? Now look at the relationship here, first of all, between Allah and Ibrahim alayhi salam. Allah showed him in a dream to give him an opportunity to really, for many of us, ask yourself, if you were to see a dream like this, what would your instinct be? Maybe it's just a nightmare. No, but the visions of prophets is something else, right? He knew it's a command from Allah, and he completely surrendered, right? Ibrahim was Hanifan Musliman. He was a monotheist, complete surrenderer to Allah. So he surrendered to Allah, he said, Labbaik. But then look at the beautiful thing, look at the beautiful wisdom which he dealt with his beloved son. Even though this was a command from Allah, Tabarak wa Ta'ala, even though he knew there was no escape from implementing this, he still offered it as though his son had a choice. He offered it to his son like a choice. What did he say to him? He said, Ya bunayya inni ara fil manami anni adhbahuka. He said, oh my little son, oh my dear son, I saw in my dream that I was sacrificing you. And then he said, Fanzur madha tare. He said, what do you think? Look, what do you think about this? This shows how concerned Ibrahim alayhi salam is with his son's emotions. Many of us, we tend to discard our children's emotions. We tend to discard, he's only a child, right? No, that's not from the wisdom of prophets, right? From the wisdom of prophets is to istashir, to ask for advice, to seek the counsel of children, right? And what did he do? He said, Fanzur madha tare. Tell me, look at what do you think about this? What did the son reply? Ya abati f'al ma tu'mar. Said, Dad, dear Dad, do what you've been commanded. And then, almost as though he knew how hard this would be for his dad, right? He says very beautiful words to sort of, placate and to reassure his dad. He said, Satajiduni insha'Allahu minas sabirin. You will find me, God willing, amongst the patient people. And wasn't he patient? So we see that Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he had this very difficult news, right? He went to his son, but he went in a loving way. He went in a gentle way. He spoke to him almost wanting this choice to come from him. Why? Because the surrendering of Ibrahim was already known. It's the surrendering of Ismail that he wanted to also be proven by asking him. Because Ibrahim, we know, was Hanifan Muslima. He was Khalilullah. But he wanted it to be clear that his son as well is also a surrenderer. So what happened? فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَ وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ. Allah said, فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَا. Allah used the jewel for their surrendering. He said, when they both surrendered, and he turned him to the side, right? وَنَادَيْنَاهُ أَن يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ. And then we called on him. Oh Ibrahim, قَدْ صَدَّقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا. You fulfilled this vision, right? And Allah replaced him with a great sacrifice. So what do we see from here? Look at that relationship, the dynamic between Ibrahim and Ismail. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he had a very weighty task. He still offered it to his son as a choice. He spoke to his son with respect. He didn't say, look, son, God has made his decision. We just got to do it. Let's go. No. He said, Inni ara fil manami anni adhbahuk. He first explained the situation to him. This is what I saw. Fanzur madha tara. Then he gave him complete choice, right? Even though it would have been difficult for him to go against Allah's rule, right? He still offered his son. Fanzur madha tara. What do you think? And of course, because he was an excellent son who also surrendered, like his father surrendered, he said, Ya abati fa'al ma tu'mar. Dad, do what you've been asked to do. Do what you've been ordered to do. So that's another relationship we see in the Qur'an of immense love between a father and his son, right? Now we're going to look at another relationship of love that comes from the father to the son, but that love is not reciprocated the other way around. And that is the story of Nuh alayhi salam. Nuh alayhi salam, he had a situation where his wife also disobeyed him and did not follow his guidance. And as such, his son as well did not follow his guidance. That did not stop Nuh alayhi salam from, when the flood came, Nuh still called his son. وَنَادَى نُوحٌ ابْنَهُ وَكَانَ فِي مَعْزِلٍ يَا بُنَيَّ ارْكَبْ مَعَنَا. Noah called his son while he was in that state. Flood was coming. He said, my dear son, come, ride with us. يا بني اركب معنا ولا تكن مع الكافرين. He said, oh my son, come and ride with us and don't be of those who reject Allah. Right? Don't drown with everybody else. What did the son say to his dad? This was a father who knew what was going to happen. Yet he called his son in a loving way. يا بني اركب معنا ولا تكن مع الكافرين. Don't be of those who reject God in this kind of situation. What did the son say? He said, سآوي إلى جبل يعصمني من الماء. He said, I'm going to go and seek refuge in a high mountain that will protect me from the water. You remember what we said in the previous session about knowledge and trust of Allah. This son placed his trust in a mountain because of his lack of knowledge of Allah, right? Thinking a mountain has an independent right to ability to protect, and forgetting that Allah is the one who protects. Allah is the real protector of those who believe. Allahu waliyyu alladhina amanu. يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور. Allah is the protector of those who believe. He always removes them from all sorts of darknesses and all sorts of wrongs, and He puts them into His light, right? He went to the mountain. The father, still with love, he responded to him. He said, لا عاصم اليوم من أمر الله إلا من رحم. He said, there's nothing that will save you from Allah's command today, except for the one Allah shows mercy on. And who are the people that Allah will show mercy on? Those who will be on this ship, right? But what did the son do? The son disobeyed, and he became of those who drowned. Now look, even though Nuh alayhi salam knew this reality that his son did not obey him, look at the love, look at the wafa, look at the kind of love Nuh had for his son. Nuh still went to Allah. And every time I recite these verses when I'm alone, it's very emotional, especially if you have children. Nuh said to Allah, he said, Ya Rabbi, inna bini min ahli. He said, oh Allah, my Lord, my son is from my family. Wa inna wa'adaka al-haqq. But your promise is true, and you are the wisest of those who judge. Right? This is Nuh, his last respite, his last hope, and asking Allah that my son, he's after all from me, right? What's going to happen to him? Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala bin the adil, bin the just, because Nuh was speaking from a bashariya, from a human, father to son. But Allah was put him in his maqam as Rasulullah, as the messenger of God, because anyone who opposes the messenger of God becomes a rejecter of faith. So Allah told him, Allah says, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ. He's not from your real family. إِنَّهُ عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٍ. Because the reality of his rejection is that he has not only rejected you, Noah, he's also rejected me. I am the Lord of the worlds, right? إِنَّهُ عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٍ. And then Allah says, فَلَا تَسْأَلْنِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. Allah, gently scolded his servant, Noah. He said, don't ask me what you don't have knowledge on, right? إِنِّي أَعِذُكَ أَن تَكُونَ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. I really urge you not to be of those who are ignorant. Nuh repented. Of course, it's his father. He repented to Allah. He says, رَبِّ إِنِّي أَعُوذُ بِكَ أَنْ أَسْأَلَكَ مَا لَيْسَ لِي بِهِ عِلْمٍ. Oh Allah, I seek your refuge in asking you what I have no knowledge about. And if you don't forgive me and have mercy on me, I will be of the wrongdoers. So you see, Nuh alayhi salam, it was very painful for him, the consequence of watching his son and knowing the consequence of his son's rejection of not just him, but of Allah's help, right? You can see that he still tried all his best to try to save the situation. And yet we see that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is al-adil. Allah is the just one, and He manifested His justice in that situation. So we can see in these three relationships, the first two between Yusuf and his dad, where the love was reciprocated in those two ways. We see between Ismail and Ibrahim where the love was reciprocated as well. We also see between Noah and his son where the love came from the father, but it didn't end up with the son. Maybe the last one we should look at is between Ibrahim himself and his dad, right? Where the love came from the son, but it was not reciprocated by the dad, right? Ibrahim alayhi salam, his father was his uncle, some scholars, some of the Mufassirun say, because they say that, a lot of the Mufassirun say that Abihi Azar, the fact that Allah mentioned the word Azar meant that the fatherhood Allah was speaking about here is a fatherhood of custom as opposed to the fatherhood of lineage, right? Because any other verse of the Quran where Allah mentions actual lineage, there's no need to mention the name of the person. But in this case, the name was mentioned so that you can be clear that actually it's not his biological father, but the person that took care of him when his actual biological father died. But the person who had this position was Azar, and he was someone who used to make idols. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, out of his love for him, would advise him, right? Ya abati lima ta'budu ma la yasma'u wa la yubsir wa la yughni anka shay'a. Dad spoke to him in a dear way. Why do you worship that which doesn't hear, which doesn't see, and will not benefit you in any way? Ya abati la ta'budu shaytan. Dear dad, don't worship shaitan. You can see here the language, the softness in which Ibrahim, because of his love, spoke to his dad, right? His dad was very fierce in response, right? He said, Araghibun anta an alihati ya Ibrahim. The father didn't say back to him, Ya bunay, oh my dear son, right? The father called him by name. Are you trying to turn me away from my idols, oh Ibrahim? We see in all the other relationships, they call their son, Ya bunayya, Ya bunayya, Ya bunayya. And the father, the son, the loving son called the father, Ya abati, Ya abati. But in this case, the father didn't reciprocate the love. He said, are you going to turn me away from my idols, oh Ibrahim? If you don't stop, I'm going to cast you away and punish you. And Ibrahim said, Salamun alayk. Peace be upon you. And he actually made a promise which later on Allah had to cause him to not fulfill this promise going forward, which is, he says, Astaghfiru laka Rabbi. I'm going to try to ask forgiveness of you. So you can see in these two, with Nuh alayhi salam, even though he saw how his son rejected him, he still went to Allah and tried to ask for forgiveness. Ibrahim alayhi salam, even though we saw this as well, he said, Astaghfiru laka Rabbi. What does that tell you? The nature of the heart of the believer is always soft and gentle, and always wanting guidance, and always wanting love and mercy for others around them, even when those people reject Allah, right? Because Allah has planted mercy in their hearts, and that mercy is a foundation of their relationship with everything around them. So we see in the second relationship where Ibrahim showed love to his dad, but his dad did not reciprocate that same love back to him, right? And at a point, Ibrahim was asked, when he has seen that, Ibrahim, when Allah showed him that his father was actually an enemy to Allah, right? Allah says, Tabarra'a minhu. He completely stopped asking for forgiveness, because it was now clear that his father wasn't just in a state of maybe, but it was clearly an enemy to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So we see in the stories, in these 4 stories, of excellent relationships from both father and child. And a third story of an excellent relationship from the father to the son, but was not reciprocated from the son to the father, and with Ibrahim and his dad, from the son to the dad, but wasn't reciprocated back from the dad to the son. And of course, we see that the best of this is where this love exists from the parent to the child, and that love is reciprocated from the child to the parent. May Allah bless us all with love and relationship with our children, and may Allah make us people whose relationships with their children and vice versa is built on mercy and love and mutual respect. May Allah make us people who hear something and take the best of it. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun alal mursalin, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.